Hi everyone. Well, I'm finally back to doing a video. I didn't do one last week. I was very busy, but I was also spending some time reflecting just on some of the things that I felt had been important in 2020. And the first thing was that in January, the first week of January, I felt that God had said to me that this was the year of 2020 vision. And so I've been praying about that and saying, God, what do you mean? And I think for me, it's always been this sense of exposing the things that are hidden in darkness, because I believe that as Christian believers, we're called to do that. And so for me, it's been in the area of sexuality for many, many years. And I think that comes first and foremost from my own personal experience and then from my professional career. So I want to talk a little bit more about that today. So you may have heard me say before about Kinsey in 1948 what he believed. And he believed that children are sexual beings from infancy onward, and that they could and should have pleasurable sexual interactions with adult partners. Now, this was in 1948, he said this, and you would have thought that such a revolutionary statement in 1948 would be quickly discredited, and he and his reputation would be in shambles, but that's not what happened. Media picked up on it, government, legislators picked up on it, and we have today what amounts to Kinsey sex ed in our educational system. We have in 2020 comprehensive sex ed. And we now teach children as young as 4 years old that masturbation is a good thing and it's pleasurable, and that we teach them how to do it more effectively. Where parents in previous decades would possibly see their children touching themselves or whatever. That's not an abnormal thing for children to do, of course not. But we wouldn't encourage them to masturbate. Because what does that do when you encourage someone to find something, especially with young children, sexually pleasurable? They don't even understand at that age what sexuality is all about. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. So we're teaching them how to masturbate effectively at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And show and tell leads to go and tell. What's being sold as sex ed is really modeling. So what's happening is that children are seeing visually models of how to do these things. And we're allowing our children to be groomed to have pleasurable sexual interactions with adult partners. Are you hearing me yet? What Kinsey pronounced in 1948, we are doing wonderfully well at facilitating in our sex education programs in 2020. Right now, I'm quite happy that parents are homeschooling. And I know you parents are going to be going, oh yeah, that's because you're not homeschooling these kids. But I'm telling you, as difficult as it is, think about your children. At least, perhaps, you're beginning to see, if it's coming through in the educational programs, some of the LGBTQ and sex ed, particularly, that is being taught to your children. It's time to wake up and be appalled, be outraged. You should be. I've been trying to warn parents for years, and it's just going to get worse. But now I have some good news. So, well, first of all, I want to tell you, I don't know how many of you knew, but about a little over a year ago, I had applied to present on transgender children to the school board in our riding. And I had presented the year previous because I wanted them to understand that the science behind this is really skewed. So I wanted to do another presentation. That presentation was refused. So I, as a psychotherapist with solid research, was refused to present on the transgender issue in our schools and my concern for the children. Because I don't have an agenda. I have concern and compassion for children. But here's the good news. It's not in Canada, but just this past week, Britain's National Health Service has set in motion a plan of a review on puberty-blocking drugs and rules pertaining to when youth are going to be allowed to begin gender transitioning. A review, finally. The Minister of Women and Equalities has just introduced new legislation to protect minors from being subjected to life-altering gender dysphoric transitioning. So gender identity transitioning, let's call it that. It used to be called gender identity disorder, then it went to gender dysphoric. Most people just call it trans now. Well, how did that happen? Well, because she looked into some statistics that she was getting very concerned about. Do you know that there was a 4,000% increase on gender transitioning referrals to the Tavistock Clinic between 2009 and 2017? Did you hear that? This is exponential increase. And why is it? When we teach children these things that they can do and be something that they really cannot be, what you have is show and tell leads to go and do. And that's exactly what's been happening across Western nations. So here's another piece of information that just came to me, that the Alabama State Senate just voted to ban use of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and body-altering gender surgeries for minors. Yay! Someone's listening. Are you listening? Well, this is some good news. It's little, but at least it's in the right direction. But here's some other things that you need to be aware of. Now, I've spoken of this repeatedly, part of this, but not this part. In 2011, the University of Cincinnati Law Review published a 56-page article on polyamory as an orientation. Now, that's not polygamy. This is polyamory. And that means that you can have 4 parents, you can have sex with, so 2 people might be married, but they may have sexual partners of same sex or opposite sex, and they may all group together. So this paper, the law review, was looking at the possibility of adding polyamory as an orientation. So we have homosexual orientation, LGBTQ, all those are orientations now. So transgender doesn't actually call itself an orientation, but it is definitely a movement. So polyamory is being equivocated in statutory definitions on sexual orientation. And so this paper examined whether polyamory is sufficiently embedded identity to be considered as a sexual orientation and the degree to which these individuals are discriminated against. And this paper concluded that such an expansion of orientation sounds reasonable. Does this sound reasonable to you? Think about it. Think about it. So then I've already been talking since 2016, well, before that, particularly in my book, Closing the Floodgates, on the issue of pedophilia being raised as orientation. So pedophilic orientation was suggested by the academic society, psychologists, psychiatrists, many of them, to be changed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual in 2014. It didn't go through. But pedophilia is on the rise, and the idea of pedophilia being a normative state is now being circulated. The academics have been leading the way on radicalizing sexuality. When are parents going to take back what is ours? The truth about your child's sexuality, that they are children. They do not need to become sexual. And actually, children do not become sexualized, sexual beings, until puberty. That's what puberty is all about. So Kinsey's statement that children are sexual beings from infancy is simply a way of preparing our minds for the last 70 years to accept this radical idea, and whose lives are going to be altered. Your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews. Maybe you've experienced some of this radicalization, and you're going to suffer. We're going to suffer the cost of these ideas on sexuality. In fact, we're already suffering the transgender phenomenon. My hope is that as parents, you're going to unite and start to fight back. So if the UK, if the Minister of Women and Equalities is taking notice and starting to do something, trying to, let's see how long it takes before Parliament shuts her down, because this isn't part of this radical sexualized agenda. They do not want people in political positions to go off on their own tangent to stop transgendering and to stop this transgender phenomena and to stop giving children hormones, puberty blockers, hormones, and double mastectomies at 15, all of those things. Anyways, my prayer is that parents will start to unite and fight back. Now is the time. Actually, the time is long past, but if you don't do it now, if we don't stand together now, your children are going to be damaged for life, and many of them already are, because they have been exposed to such a radical sex education. So I'm going to put this at the end of this video, but I want to tell you about a website that is really, really good. It's called familywatchinternational.org, familywatchinternational.org, and in their search engine, check for sex ed report. It's going to open your eyes to a lot of things, and we need our eyes open. I'll be talking more about exposing things that need to be exposed and that we need to wake up to in the future. Thanks for listening.